All right, so today's note-taking guide, function notation, just again to review really fast what that means, is really what it means is that we're replacing our y values with the f of x value. And we're going to read it as f of x, or the value of x in the function f. It really just means the same thing though of what we've always been doing, where we're just going to replace numbers in an equation with either the x or the y value. Okay, it's just called function notation. So f of x would stand for the y value, and this number that's inside the f of x, that would be the number that would be substituted in place of the x in an equation. So just like the bell work today, we had an equation that looks like this where we substituted our values in for x. We're going to do the same thing here. I need you to write me an equal sign right here though. That's a typo, that it needed to be equals there instead of minus. So you make sure that you get your equal sign written right here. Alright, so here's the way this reads. It says, if f of x equals 2x minus 3, find the following. So again, this is the function of x, meaning my answer is determined by what value I put in for x. So when you go down here and it says f of negative 2, this is your x value because it's your f of x value. Your x value is negative 2, and you're going to substitute it into the equation in place of the x. So you'd have 2 times negative 2 minus 3. When you do that, what do you get? It is negative 7. So your answer is negative 7 on the first problem. Okay. Again, function notation says f of 7, which means my x value this time is 7. I plug it into my f function in place of the x. So I'm 2 times 7 minus 3, which is how much? 11. Very nice. So again, this last one right here asked me to put the number negative 4 in place of x. So I would have 2 times negative 4 minus 3. What did you get that time? Negative 11. Nice job. So once you know where to substitute it in, these become really quick calculator problems because you can just substitute it in your calculator and it will kind of spit out the answer for you. So just another way to remind you, we could write our answers here though. When I put negative 2 in, what did I get out for its answer? Negative 7. So we can think about those as input and output values to get our ordered pair still. If you put negative 2 in, you get negative 7 out. If you put 7 in, you get 11 out. So just remember that that's what an ordered pair represents, is a set of input and output values. Okay. Sometimes there's going to be more than one x in the equation that you're substituting into, or the function that you're substituting into. It's okay. Every time we see an x, guess what we're putting in its place this time? We're putting negative 3 in every time there's an x. So you would have negative 3 squared minus 3 times negative 3 plus 5. So I just took that value and I substituted it in every time I saw an x into the h function. So negative 3 squared, remember, if you don't put that in parentheses on your calculator, it will spit out the wrong sign on that. So negative 3 squared is negative 3 times negative 3, which is a positive 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 right here is a positive 9. So I have 9 plus 9 plus 5, which is the answer of 23. Does anybody have a question as to where I got 23? All right, so when I put negative 3 in, I got 23 out as my solution. You can write it as an ordered pair still. All right, h of 1 this time asked me to put my 1 value in the h function in place of the x. So I'm going to have 1 squared minus 3 times 1 plus 5. I'm going to give you a second to work. You guys shout out that answer when you have it for me. It's did you say 3? Yeah, it is 3. The reason it is you'd have 1 minus 3, which would be negative 2. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3. So when we put 1 in, we got 3 out. All right. So when we are doing it this way and the number is inside parentheses like that, will always be considered our x value. Here's just a little reminder here that it tells you that the input will be inside the parentheses. It will be your x values. You plug it in place of x. But if it looks like this, where you have f of x equals negative 3, that time it's really telling you that your y value is negative 3, and you would plug that number in place of the y. And we'll do that in just a minute. All right, this next part, though, is just filling out this table of values for all of the x values that they gave you on your table. So this is just some really quick substitution again. So my function is f of x equals 5x minus 3. My x value is negative 2. So I would have 5 times negative 2 minus 3 to figure out what my f of x value is. It is negative 13. Nice job. I do the same thing with the negative 1. So 5 times negative 1 minus 3. Negative 8. I put 0 in. I do 5 times 0 minus 3. Negative 3. Does anybody know what the next number is going to be without even plugging it in? Have you seen a pattern in my numbers yet? Because there will be patterns when we do stuff like this sometimes. We should start looking for them. But let's plug it in and see. 5 times 1 minus 3 is going to be 2. Anybody know what the next number is going to be? 7. How did you figure that out? Yeah, this is coming up by 5s, isn't it? So this next one is 7, and the last one is 12. We're going up by 5s. So 7 plus 5 would be 12. And if you don't know, you can substitute it back in. So you'd have 5 times 3, which is 15. 15 minus 3 is 12. I'm going to start pointing out some patterns as we go, because in a few days we're going to go backwards and have to write an equation from finding the pattern, okay? All right, this next one is an exponential graph. It's going to be really hard to see a pattern in this because exponential things grow exponentially fast. But let's just substitute these in and make sure we know how it works again. These again are my x values. So I would have 2 to the negative 2 power plus 5.
It's 5.25?
It is 5.25. Then I would have 2 to the negative 1 power plus 5.
5.5?
It's what?
5.5?
Will you do that one more time? Because I don't think it is.
I got 5.5 too.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just double checking. Thank you. Everybody else is good? You're getting those same numbers? All right. 2 to the 0 plus 5.
6.
Good. 2 to the 1 plus 5.
7.
7. No pattern yet here to notice, is there? So you have to keep going. 2 to the 2nd plus 5. 9. And 2 to the 3rd plus 5. 13. Okay. So sometimes not a pattern that's visible in your table when you're filling them out. And we'll talk about some of these things a little bit later. All right, so this time I seriously want you to read my table of values here and find my numbers that are my solutions just from the table. So I asked you to find when f is f of negative 3, what it's equal to. This is really saying when my x value is negative 3, what's my solution? So come up here and find your x value where it's negative 3. And what's your solution? It's 2. Then go and find where your x value is 20. When your x value is 20, what's your solution? 0. Okay, don't be tricked this time, because do you see that this time it says your y value that you're looking at? Don't look at your x value this time. Look at your f of x value. So look at your f of x values. Is there a 9 there? Nope. So what do we put for an answer when that happens? Yeah, no solution, right? There's not a solution there. Okay, same thing on this next one. Look at your y values, your f of x values, and see if there's a 5 there. No, so no solution. Okay, I do want to add on one more problem here that does actually work, because that's kind of disappointing that those didn't work. What if I had f of x equals 8? Could you find me the value then? It's -5. Nice job. Because you go find where f of x is 8, and then you would find the x value. Okay? All right, so sometimes we're not asked to substitute a number in for x. Sometimes we're asked to substitute the number in for y. And this is the case right here. Do you see this time how it says f of x is equal to 15? So guess where I'm going to put the 15 in at? I'm going to put it in place of the f of x. So I would have 15 equals 7x minus 4. And I would then just solve that equation for the x value. So what do I do to solve this for x? Yeah, remember the isolate rule where you cover it and just move stuff? So you're going to get x by itself, so add the 4 over. You get 19 equals 7x. Yeah, and it's just going to be ugly, so I'm totally fine if you leave that as 19 over 7. If you want to change it to a decimal point number, you're okay to do that too. I don't care if you do it. I would just as soon see it as a fraction though. So your choice on whether or not you change that.
The decimal point would be 2.714.
Okay, 2.714 if you wanted to go with the decimal point number. All right, the next one, again, do you see this time how it's asking me to put my number 22 in place of the f of x? So we'd have 22 equals -2x minus 6. And I'm going to solve this again for x. So isolate that 2 on the x there by adding the 6 over first. I get 28 equals a -2x. I divide both sides by -2. And what do I get my x value to be? Perfect, thank you. All right, one more way we're going to look at our x and our y values here is to look at our graph. So I want to zoom in a little bit better on my graph right here. Okay, not that good. Mrs. Clark still has not figured out the zoom on this new machine. Okay, good enough, I guess. Here we go, let's go with that. This time it says f of -2. Is -2 my x value or my y value? Okay, do you remember how we would write f of x? So the number inside the parenthesis is always going to be your x value. So really what we're asking you to do is to look at your x value on your graph where x is -2. X is -2 right here. So when x is -2, what's the y value on your graph? 0. So your answer is 0. Okay. Again, it asks you to do your x value right here. So you're finding 3 as your x value. So when you come over to 3 as your x value, what's your y value this time on your graph? So 3, perfect. These are my y values this time, because you see how it says f of x equals 4, it's a y value. So you go up on your y-axis to where you're at 4. And what's your x value this time? If you're up at 4, your x value is 0. And then the last question today, you guys, this time is my y value again is 3. So when you're up at 3 on your y, how far over are you on on your x's, you're over 3.